Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much, please. How much time do I have?
20 minutes.
20. Okay. I don't have a prepared speech, so I'll try to be, as interactive as possible, and I hope you find it interesting because a written speech is rarely of much use, I think. Democracy as we see it, and I come from South Asia region, which has a rich history of kingdoms, in which power was transferred from the king to the son, and the sons would fight, and then the new kingdom comes in. So as we see it, it is one of the biggest successes, if not the biggest successes of humankind, human race, that we were able to evolve a system of governance and a system of transfer of power, which our predecessors, our elders did not have. And after the death of a king or any leader, you may, thank you very much, please, you may name him or her as anything, a ruler, a Raja, Maharaja, whatever, tribal chief, they would be infighting and then somebody, And the second part of democracy is that it is collective decision making. So all of us suddenly have a claim to a decision that is being made. Like, it's not totally us, but of course you choose somebody who sits in the Bundestag or the National Assembly or House of Commons. So you have a stake in the decision that is made to some extent. Previously you had none. The king, who is preordained, who is maybe the shadow of God as they are called, would decide on his own, and he would have a pick of people who would be his advisors, it is his own good self to consult if he wants to. If he doesn't want to, it is up to him. So the biggest thing in democracy is that all of us have a claim to the decision-making system, which is huge. It takes a bit of a time for the new generation to accept that this has happened. 50 years ago, this was not happening in more than half the world. So it is still not happening in many parts of the world. So this is the biggest success, and that has led to a lot of developments, benefits in economic domain, trades, industry, social benefits, because the individual has a claim. And if you want more schools, or you want more hospitals, or you want more better roads, you have a claim through your elected representative to come to concentrate on that as against war. So this is the ideal democracy. It rarely functions in that manner because practically there are always challenges. Sometimes the defense concerns would override a common man's desire that I would want to have more kitas or more primary schools or more technical education schools or something, but you have a war happening, or you have in your neighborhood, it's an academic environment, so we can discuss. Ukraine happens, and you have nuclear threats happening, you have other things happening. Then there are one thing that you are from, I think, different backgrounds, so you should be able to understand that it is not the only system in the world. This is very important. The Chinese have taken some 800 million people out of poverty, and there's no democracy in China. So we can't just say that democracy is the only solution, it is the only system. Because for a person, the best thing is to somehow come out of poverty, to have opportunities. So the Chinese have done it without democracy. There would be challenges of human rights, etc., but it can't just be written off that democracy is the be-all, end-all of all the systems in the world. There are other examples. There was this communist model which did not work very well, but it's still there, and it maybe needs tweaking somewhere. It is on the paper. Democracy itself has many challenges, because sometimes democracy itself stifles debate, and you're not ready to listen to other voices, even within the democracy. The happenings, not speaking as a Pakistani diplomat but as an academician, purely that you go to war with Iraq claiming that there are WMDs, a democracy, and then no WMDs are found. So if somebody says that this is the only solution, if you ask a Libyan, I talk to them, they might tell you that we were better off under Muammar Gaddafi, financially, socially, than a civil war in which they find themselves for the last 10 years or something. Endless. So it is easy for us to comment sitting here in a nice room having coffee that democracy is whatever the best solution that you can present, but it might not be for the 2.5 million people who died in Iraq after the Iraq war. The war, of course, came from democracies. So what would be the best solution? I don't know. You are the students who are going to devise our future, who are going to think about it, who are going to formulate new systems. There is no final system. This much I can tell you. There is no best system. The human race is evolving. The systems are evolving. So you need to debate it. You need to discuss it. You need to brainstorm, as they say, that what can be a better system, what can be a better evolution of this process which is continuing. So democracy, I'm not like making a case against democracy or for democracy. This is for you to make. I am just laying out the benefits that because of democracy in the last 70 years, Europe is where it is. And after 1945, except Ukraine, there has not been any war in Europe. And it was anticipated that there would be no war, and democracies don't go to war, etc., etc. But now you are very close, like you drive 8 hours in this direction or whichever direction it is, and you are in a war zone, which was unthinkable. Europe had somehow thought after 1945 that war is to happen in far-off regions like Korea or Africa or South Asia. It is not for us. But suddenly that concept is changing. So the concept to understand is that what would be a better system of governance in which eventually the aim of any democracy is to have a better system of governance in which you can have your say, you can get what you want. The minority is not stifled, the minority is not sidelined, and they get their rights. Religious freedoms are there, all freedoms are there. But then I take you to another very controversial subject. I'm not here for routine kind of academic thing. Then you have cases like I'm a Muslim, but keeping that to one side, you say that this is a democracy and there are personal freedoms and I'm going to burn the Quran. What kind of a democracy is that? That you are going to lead to, you step on an event, do something which is going to irritate 1.5 billion people in the world. So even if it is numbers, you can't do that. Personal freedoms should end somewhere. So an unfettered democracy or unfettered personal freedom, people won't agree to that. There are 8 billion people in the world. So there is no superior concept. There is no the concept of a superior race or a superior system or a superior. The world is a very strange thing. 100 years ago, it was a very different world. 100 years ago. 100 years from now, we don't know what kind of a world we would be living in. It is 3 or 4 generations after you. The new systems would evolve. 30 years of my life, I did not have this. We did not know that you could have a mobile phone. We are much better planners than all of you. Because when we would leave our home, we would decide that I'll meet you there, I'll go there, because there was no mobile phone. Now my children, they don't decide anything. They sit in the car and then they start planning. So, there's a change. A huge change has happened in cultures, in thinking, everything. When I was young, my elders would ask me, what book are you reading? It was necessary that you should have a book by your bedside. Then it transformed into a 500-word article. Have you seen what's in The Guardian or New York Times or something? And now it's a 140-character tweet. That's about it. The attention span has shrunk. Nobody is ready to read. Nobody has the time. If it is worth that. That leads to further problems because that makes you all look at democracy in 180 characters or something, which you can't. It is a wider concept. So there are the purpose of the discussion that I initiated was that to understand that there is no perfect solution, but for me, practicing, and I have lived in Saudi and I have lived in Africa and I have lived in Brussels, I've seen EU and now here also, and traveled all over the world, my job. It is the best system that we have evolved, with its flaws. It has its challenges. But if you compare it to kingship or other systems, there are many question marks. The Chinese system, please do read it. It is a fascinating system, the Communist Party and how it... So financially and economically, it is a better model. But socially, for civil liberties, human rights, is it still a very good model? While we criticize the Chinese for the Uyghur things, are you ready to criticize the burning of Quran in Sweden? So that is sacrosanct, but the Chinese are very bad. So this is a huge problem. And when you take the case of democracy to somebody, child dying in Iraq or Afghanistan or Libya, he might not or she might not be very, very impressed by your democratic system. Mr. Osama bin Laden was created by the West, the Americans at that time, and the war and the Mujahideen were created by them to fight USSR. So democracy was not very objective at that time. Democracy wanted to win at whatever cost. And the cost was not paid by the West. The cost was paid by the people of Afghanistan, the people of Pakistan, the people of the region. They continue to pay that price. It is a high price to pay. So whenever you make a sweeping, concept that this is the best that could be there, you should think about these things from other perspective, because as a diplomat I am trained to look at one, because that is the official position and we stick to it and we defend it. But as a student, you have to look at all angles from this, and you have to look at it from the angle of the people who are suffering because of actions that were taken by democracies. And then democracy as a concept is fine when you're talking of nation states, but you're not happy when you're talking of democracy at the United Nations. Nobody wants democracy in the United Nations. There are permanent 5 members who can veto anything. There are bombings going on in Jenin, in Palestine, Israel now as we speak, and nobody is ready to even condemn it. And there are positions which are so hard in which people say, no, the Israelis are right and these guys are wrong. The others would say no. But there is no democracy. You take it to Security Council. The world decided in 1945 that the responsibility of peace and security would be with UN Security Council. This was a global decision in 1945. So of course the Palestinians should have the option to go to the Security Council and say, we have a problem, please find a solution. But you go there, you get a veto. So if democracy is that good, why not try it there in the United Nations? Why not try it even in the World Trade Organization? Numbers and everything. So these things are very interesting concepts which I would suggest that you all look into it, you all read about it, you all think about it with an open mind. And I think one or two more points and that's it. Application of democracy in a society which has maybe 10% of literacy rate or 20% of literacy rate as against a society which has 100% of literacy rate would be very different. Because a vote of a person who is not educated, who doesn't know good or bad, has never read a book, never read a newspaper, and you want to equate that vote to a person who has done a PhD or a student like you, there are question marks how it should be done. And because I come from a country where literacy is a big problem, illiteracy. So in the region even, and there are other regions. So just saying that one man, one vote doesn't solve all problems, because the person might not really know what exactly is good for them. This is a huge issue because this is difficult to understand. Anyone with 100%, you have 100% literacy, you have compulsory education. A child can't be roaming around who's 10 years old on the street. He will be caught put somewhere and then go to school. You come to my country. When I say my country, I mean the entire developing world, whether it's India or Pakistan or wherever you go. You have thousands, hundreds of thousands of children roaming on the streets, and we don't have the money to educate them. We don't have the money to provide them skills. We don't have the schools. We don't have the resources to do that. So once you apply democracy there, then everyone has a vote. So now you are talking to somebody who has never gone to a school, who has never seen a book, who has never been trained, and you want to equate that vote with your vote. Would that work? Would he be able to understand what exactly is going on, or a rich man would come and maybe pay for that vote and take the vote? Give him $10, $50, something, and he'll pay. So these are the challenges. When I live here and I talk to many people over the last many years, the simplistic approach to democracy, that this is how it should be, everyone should vote. Fine, but everyone might not be as educated, or they might not have. In your country, Germany is a fascinating place because you can keep studying as long as you want. It's free education, universities and everything. You go to my country, or even in England or America, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars to acquire that education that would give you the understanding of what is going on. So how to equate, how to balance that? And we have faced that problem, that in some instances you have people who come to the leadership status because of the power of the vote, who don't have good credentials. They have a lot of money, but they don't have the right credentials, and then you have problems. Democracy, even Mr. Saddam Hussein used to say that there's an election, the Baath party would hold 99% votes, and he claimed that he was an elected president. Idi Amin was an elected president. They were welcomed by the Queen. There are pictures and everything. So when you take a principled position, you have to see that democracies are not very objective when they take these decisions. These people were created by, and at that time, the so-called elections of Baath Party and everything was supported by the West. I don't know. This is fine. This is very good. And this is how I at least see things that democracy entails, and it is changing now. Things are changing very fast. I foresee that in coming days we would be seeing a different form of democracy, generally prevalent in the world, because of course the benefits of democracy are everyone is not certain that we are getting equal benefits from democracy. And the global democracy, like the UN and all these organizations, they are very important to look at. How can we have more a democratic international system of governance? Can we have that, or we can't? So that remains a challenge. I think we can take the rest of the things when we have a question and answer. I've been very frank, and because it's no point for an academic institution to listen to our conventional stated positions and all that you already know. Thank you very much. I hope you like it.
No, thank you very much, Your Excellency. And if it's okay, maybe you could return to the podium, and then we would take a few questions from the audience. Is that okay?
It is fine.
Yeah, okay, wonderful. This is your chance, as I said, so please ask questions, make comments. Try to keep your question or comment concise so that we can hear as many voices as possible. If you could just raise your hand, whoever would like to go first, and then also briefly introduce yourself so that the ambassador knows where you're from. Who would like to go first? Yes, okay. And maybe, Stefano, could you bring this microphone back there? Or do we have a second mic? Or? No, there may be a second mic.
Check. Hello, sir. Thank you for the speech. My name is Gleb. I came from Russia.
Okay.
So my question relates to, I suppose, the history of democratic development. So according to what I know, in Europe, some sort of democracy was established after the revolution in France. And the first elections that took place in Europe at those times in 19th century and the late 18th century, it was under certain sense. So only educated and wealthy men could vote. Then it was changed towards more men, and then eventually some more women, and then eventually everyone. But the idea behind democracy in Europe at those times was that as only a certain group of people who have either money or education are allowed to vote. So, but then considering what you said also about the fact that we cannot really put a vote of a educated person and non-educated person in one group, because obviously the value of that vote, well, supposedly different. Do you think that it would make sense for some countries, let's say in the world, or maybe in Europe or elsewhere, to introduce these sort of measures to see that only a man or a woman with higher education can vote, or there is a certain monetary sense to the vote? Do you think that it would be a good idea for some countries who, let's say, chose a path towards democracy in this sense of way? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Simultaneous to what happened in the last 200 years, there was also this rise of education in Europe. So as the voting pattern increased and you started giving voting rights to more and more people, the education standard also increased. So it is the minimum education standard of the voter that we are talking about. It is difficult to find somebody in Germany or Europe who can't read or write in any language. It's very easy to find it in my country or in developing countries who can't read or even who can't even sign their name. So we are talking of those people, how to bring them up to a level that they should vote, and vote in a sense that they can benefit, because for those people, if you give them some money or something, they are very happy that, oh, I got something today. And if the person is telling them that 5 years down the line you'll have a bridge here or a hospital here, he says, who cares, 5 years down the line, I get my money now and that's it. So that is where so I would definitely, yes, because I gave many examples and all of them claimed that they were democracies. Even Gaddafi Saab claimed that this is a democracy. So there are elections in many countries. I don't want to name them, so-called elections, but I would not advocate that kind of election. But definitely, poor countries can't have, my understanding, and I have seen that happen. Can't have elections as you hold in France or Germany and everything, because you have to understand that education, even in my country, is quite expensive. It is free to forget it, but it is quite, and as you rise, as you go to college or university, it becomes even more expensive and very, very competitive. So we don't have that many colleges or institutions or anything. So to understand that, this becomes a challenge. So I would definitely, we should look at it, yes.
Who would like to go next? Yeah.
Yes, please.
Oh, I can bring it back. Yeah, we can go to the back and go to the front. Okay.
At the back, I think. Oh.
Yeah, start in the back.
Hello. Thank you, sir. My question is about the Pak-Afghan relation. So what should be done that both the countries live in peace and live in like years ago, how they lived together, crossing the border without visa and other issues? What should be done in order to solve all the conflicts among the both countries, and what next steps Pakistan should take to not interfere in the Afghan government issues? Thank you.
It is a very interesting question. You see, the only solution that I have found in my life is dialogue. You have to talk to each other. You have to find solutions. The world at the moment is not ready to talk to Afghanistan because of the situation with the women. And how to engage the Afghans, that the taboo that the women are not getting education or health or whatever it is a big issue now. But how Pakistan is engaging still with Afghanistan. Another problem is non-recognition of the government in Afghanistan. There is no country in the world that has recognized Afghanistan government for the moment. So that is even affecting the aid that is going into Afghanistan. So there are multiple challenges. Pakistan advocates dialogue. And Pakistan even urges the global community to engage with Afghanistan. There is a complex history of what happened in Afghanistan, which of course we can't address at this moment. Very complex. and it has been a war zone for global powers, not just Pakistan. You point finger at Pakistan, you should be able to point finger at the country that attacked Afghanistan and stayed there for 20 years and then left. So why not name it? You know. So there are problems that the empires have died in Afghanistan, and people have paid a very high price in Afghanistan for it, completely. And we have made mistakes, Pakistan, of course, in that sense also. But dialogue, yes, is the only we have to engage with the Afghan government. The Afghans have to engage. A tolerant way forward. One thing I can tell you, one thing. After decades, maybe more than decades, after 1945 or something, the global focus is not on Afghanistan and the region. They are focused elsewhere, Indo-Pacific, Ukraine. This, for the first time, gives space for regional countries to find a solution. Otherwise, there was this global interventions coming from former Russia, USSR, coming from the Americans, coming from the West, coming from, I meet people in Germany who have served in Afghanistan for the last 20 years off and on. So what business had they to serve there and then suddenly leave? If you are there for nation building, then build the nation. 20 years and then you leave. So I don't say that anyone is exonerated, but this is the only silver lining, that after years and years, the world is more concerned about China and AUKUS and Quad and Five Eyes and etc., and Ukraine. So there is no focus on Afghanistan, which is good, I think, my impression. It is good for the people. You let the people find solutions themselves. External intervention always complicates the situation. But I wish that the situation elsewhere does not worsen that much. I hope.
Okay, we're running short on time, but let's try two more questions. I think here in the front, and there's actually also the
I'll keep it short.
Come to the front first, and then we'll go to the back to alternate. I don't want to privilege only one group.
Hello, sir. I'm Najib from Afghanistan. Thank you for your nice talk. But you criticize the Western countries that they created Osama, Mujahideen, Taliban. But the Pakistan, these were projects, but Pakistan implemented these projects. We blame at the same time Western countries, also Pakistan. Pakistan implemented the project of creating Osama, Mujahideen, and Taliban. And we had democratic government in 20 years. Consistently, Pakistan supported terrorist groups in Afghanistan. Our former president tried many times.
Question, if you can give.
Many times they tried to to have dialogue with Pakistan, but instead your country supported terrorist groups. And at least we had, to some extent, democratic government, that we were practicing democracy, that you talk very nicely about democracy, but I don't know, as a diplomat, for it is difficult to answer. You have two types of government in Pakistan, one military, one civil government. I don't know which one you present here. And my question is, if you and Pakistan believes in democracy, why they supported terrorist groups inside Afghanistan? Still, you said that the world forgotten Afghanistan, but they have not forgotten. There are many terrorist groups. They came from Pakistan. And Uyghurs, they are still in Afghanistan, in the north of Afghanistan. They are creating, there are terrorist groups.
Question, my friend.
My question is that you criticizing Western countries, they attack Afghanistan, but the project was implemented by your country. When should we hope that you stop the supporting terrorist group, your country?
Okay. Simple question is easy, because it's not a public forum where we are going to win an argument. That's an advice, but it's your. You see, I never criticized West. This is what you have to understand, you are students. I am putting forward a point of view. I am not here to criticize. This is not a non-academic forum where I am here to criticize. Okay? You might have your personal, problems with anything. Again, we are in an academic place. This is not the place for that. Public is the place for that. This is here to understand what exactly happened. I, for once, agreed that we made our mistakes. Exact words I said. We made our mistakes. The Americans made their mistakes. Everyone made mistakes. Afghans living in Afghanistan made mistakes. This is not a finger-pointing system or something. Absolute democracies don't exist. I can give you 50 other examples. There are many challenges wherever democracies are. That is the challenge to understand. I am not saying Pakistan is a perfect democracy. When did I say that? I am saying there are many challenges in democracies. And when you are in a global conflict, there are multiple players. Some of them might be democracies, some of them might not be democracies. We are here to discuss democracy, not to discuss what happened to Pakistan or Afghanistan or find a solution of it. If we can have a talk on that. I'm ready to come and have a talk on that. But to discuss democracies. Mistakes were committed. Yes, there's no question about that. Not just by Pakistan. The interference was never just by Pakistan. It was from both sides and beyond. It was a global game that was played in Afghanistan. And you must have read about the Great Game, which was played 100 years ago. That was not played by Pakistan. Because of the location of the place, it has remained very contentious. And when you have a contentious situation, sadly, democracy takes a backseat. Whether it is in the West, I gave you the WMD example, or Libya example I can give you other examples. The criticism or the evaluation of democracy would be when we discuss democratic countries. And were they able to, sustain that when they address these problems? So I'm the first one to accept that Pakistan had made mistakes. Why not? Yes, please.
Okay, let's take one from the back and one from the front. You've been waiting.
Hello, this is Jahani, and again from Afghanistan. You mentioned before that late Afghans solved their own problems by themselves, but you know that currently a dictatorship de facto is ruling in Afghanistan, and they are making propaganda, they are manipulating facts, they are just changing everything drastically, and everything going against democracy. And do you believe that this kind of situation is leading to the initial stage of democracy? I think we are going in a storm. It means we are not coming out to the way of democracy back. Thank you.
Thank you. You want two questions? Or? I can have a small answer. I can do a small answer.
So if you guys could promise try to do concise questions, we'll take both of you, and then we'll take both of you.
You see, Afghanistan was occupied for 20 years by the Western powers. I think it's ample time to build democracy. It was not. So this is, forget who is right, who is wrong. This is a failure of building of democracy. So the interesting question, academic question would be why it could not be done, so that if in future something happens elsewhere also, how can it be rectified, the problem? Because 20 years, absolute control, the allied forces who were there. But still, and they did a good, 2.3 or $3 trillion were put in, so a lot of money was put in, and forces were on the ground, and these provincial reconstruction teams, PRTs, were there building, trying to do some building. What exactly went wrong? Where was the problem? And there was it collapsed like a house of cards. After 20 years, it collapsed in days. What happened? So forget the strategic thing, because that is not your subject. On the political front, on the democratic front, what were the mistakes? Thanks.
Let's take a few questions together, otherwise we won't have time.
The lady, I think we haven't had a woman.
The lady, and then but then I have to stop, because you can, I'm glad about the interest. So please, a concise question. No, it's okay, it's okay. Okay. Yeah, no, we'll take both of them, and then you can respond to all together.
Okay, my name is Abdul Wahab. I'm from Algeria. I wanted to keep it academical. I want to talk about democracy. Don't you think that democracy is a process rather than a result? Let's say, for instance, yeah, it might not always lead to the good consequences, but then just like I always give the example of kids need to make mistakes in order to grow up. So nations also need to make some mistakes so then they grow up. And even the educated ones who know how to vote and for the smartest decisions can also make mistakes. So maybe democracy needs some time in order to give us the good results. Thank you.
I agree.
Okay, let's take maybe the other questions as well.
I will reply.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Ladies first.
Hello, I'm from Ireland. My name is Audrey. I just wanted to ask you just for some clarification on the point you mentioned about voting rights, and also that Vlad chimed in on, where you were suggesting that those who are less educated, that their voting right does not have the same equality, let's say, as somebody who is more educated. And it seemed to be a rhetorical question, but I just wondered what your view was, because Vlad had said, yes, we must look at that. So what is it that you must look at? Are you saying that voting rights now should not be something seen as universal? Is there some kind of...
The problem is...
Some clarity, please. On that.
Yeah. I also said that you have to understand the level of education, understanding of the uneducated person. You can't look at it from the lens of West, where everyone is educated and free education is there, and until grade 10, you have universal education, 99.9%. In my country, it's hardly 20%. The rest don't read or write. The question is that do you give them the same right? It is not about universal franchise and...
I know the question is, but I'm asking what the answer that you're putting.
I am saying that you should discuss it. Yes, it is a problem. My country is in abject poverty. The question that they make on Afghanistan, the question is probably because of that the decision makers are not, they do not have the exact will of the people. The people don't even know what their will is exactly. How to implement that will. So that needs to be looked into.
I'm not really fully understanding. It just seems to be formulated as a question. But are you suggesting that voting rights should be looked at?
Yes.
Universal voting rights
Yes.
should be picked apart?
Why not?
That some people should have right to have a right to vote and others not have a right to vote?
That is not what I am saying. You see, you are trying to put words in my mouth which are not there. Because the problem, I'll tell you now, I understand. The problem is, please don't look at anything from your own prism. That is not the only truth. What you are seeing from Ireland or Germany, where 100% literacy is there, unless you understand what my country is talking, what Africa is going through, what is the colonial history, where we are just saying that everyone has same right. In this class, everyone should have same voting rights, in this class, because you are at the same level. On the street, there are people who don't have this privilege of having education, of learning, of having teachers like this, who are having discussions like this. You have to think about them. Otherwise, this class would formulate laws which benefits this class. And you will have a better air conditioning here and lunches here, but nothing for the people on the street. This is what democracies in developing countries are doing.
This much I understand.
So,
Okay, I have to stop you just because there are a few other voices. You're dominating a little bit too much the conversation. So.
We're getting context, but I'm simply asking, what is your view?
I'm saying we should discuss it. I am saying...
Discussing it. We are discussing.
No, you want me to give a decision here. I think that is unfair.
I don't think so. I think that you need to have
I think that should be my right.
And
what
I'd
you
ask
think
us
is
please
your
to be
right.
respectful of the speakers and each other, and I think we have to conclude that dialogue. But there are two other hands here in the front. And
You have to
in
be
terms of-
tolerant. I have to make a point here. You can't do this, that you have to reply. I want to know. No, you have a right to say something. I have a right to say something. You might not like it. Fair enough. Tolerance. This is exactly what the world, the developed world is doing to the developing world. That you guys, you don't know. You have a right. I respect that. I have a right. Please, you have to respect that right. Whether you like it or not is not important. You might say that this is rubbish. Fine. But at least respect the right. That I have the right to say what I want. And you have the right to say what you want. And then we move on. Please.
Okay, so the final two, if you guys could be concise, would be excellent. And then they can both make their questions and then a final response. Maybe you could pass my microphone.
Dear Ambassador, first of all, thank you for your speech. It was very interesting. I am Nicholas Khatiashvili, representing Parliament of Georgia. I will have a simple answer. I know that Kashmir is one of the reasons between tensions of relations between India and Pakistan. So, what is your view regarding the solution of this issue? Thank you.
Very simple. Democracy. Ask the people. Ask the people if they want to go with India, go with India. If they want to go with Pakistan. Simple. And this is what the UN Security Council said, but this is more of a conventional position that Pakistan diplomat would take. So I can score some brownie points here. I don't want to. But you ask the people if they want to go this way, if they want to go that.
Thank you, Ambassador. My name is Muleka Tone from Uganda. Where I come from, there's a lot of diplomacy, but it's more of shadowed behind. Why? Because they say they're doing elections. Yet behind it, there's malpractice of elections. Because you find a situation whereby it's the same president elected. But when I look at a situation, you're wasting a lot of money by electing the same president who is cheating all the time instead of developing or providing services to the people. That's why sometimes I feel like if we're doing a monarch system, instead of wasting money on elections and everything called democracy, we'd have a monarchic system. So 10 years from now, is the future of the world better off with monarch system or diplomacy? That's my question.
Good question. Good question. With monarchy, my problem is that the succession is not there. The biggest success of democracy is that the transfer of power is there. It might not be perfect, of course, there are problems. But previously, the transfer of power was the war. After the king has died, the sons would fight or the uncles would fight, and this is the history of human history. This is the biggest success, that 4 years down the line, in America, there would be an election and power would shift really. This is huge. This is not happening, now I criticize the other side, in China. This is not happening in Russia. Mr. Xi is the leader for lifetime. But the Chinese are okay with it. The Chinese say that we want predictability and things of the sort. But for monarchy, the main challenge would be that once the king dies, then what happens? And second, I want you to really look at something very interesting, because it is very useful. The mother of democracy, England, UK. They still have a monarchy. So this is a huge, contradiction, that you have an elected system, you have a House of Commons and Lords, still have a monarchy. Why?
But just hope them to survive for long.
I don't know. I don't know. But the question is that, and there are monarchies in many European countries, not in Germany and not in France, but I think in Netherlands you still have, and Denmark you still have, and they are very good democratic countries, and because of education and everything, they have a very good voting system. But please do look at what is the use of these monarchies? Why are they there? Maybe they are useful. Why? Because many intelligent people must have thought about these systems. And some countries have gotten away with got rid of the monarchies, in France and etc. But still they are there. So why? What is the use of keeping them? Are they useful? Maybe they are, I don't know. But please do look into it, because when the mother of democracy has a monarchy, there must be a reason behind it. If it was that bad a system, why don't get rid of them and get all their money and divide it in the people and everything? So we're not doing that. Yes, please.
Last question. Do you think Dubai would be better off with a monarch system or diplomacy?
That's $1 million question. I am no one to guess. I am no one to talk about that. But in some cases, the monarchies have done a fantastic job. Yes. But for the monarchies, the problem, now I will be... you people are more touchy than I should be. I am on the job, but I can still say, Saudi Arabia, Mr. Mohammed bin Salman had to lock in 20 or how many of the princes, the change of power. So he's doing a good job, fantastic job. But
how long does it take to change that power?
I don't know, but this transfer of power, this is the biggest success of democracy, because human history, 5,000 years, you have never had a system in which that power could be transferred peacefully, relatively peacefully or peacefully. It was always very bloody, with the princes fighting and the strongest winning and people dying and everything. So this, to me, is the biggest success of democracy.
Your Excellency, thank you again so much for having come today. It's great to have you here. What I didn't mention earlier is Pakistan is actually one of the most active embassies that I know in Berlin when it comes to cultural diplomacy. Not only under your time as ambassador, but at least 3 ambassadors before. So that's where we're grateful to have a close relationship with you. I appreciate you taking your time. I'm also very happy we had many questions. We're a little bit over schedule, but we got off to a great start for the conference. So again, my gratitude to you for having come and contributing to the conference. I'd ask you all to please join me in extending our sincere gratitude.
Thank you very much. Please. Thank you. And apologies if I said anything wrong. Thank you. You were all fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you.